Hello everyone, I am the Enforcer and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today's breaking news is that within the area of the Glishkovo district of the Kursk Oblast, 700 Russian soldiers have been trapped south of the Reka Sam as the major bridgeway crossing the river of Sam from Glishkovo has been destroyed in a decisive airstrike by Ukrainian armed forces just over the past 2 hours. We were able to get picture and video evidence showing that the bridge had been destroyed. We were able to see pictures from earlier in this morning showing that the bridge once again had suffered the primary hit that we saw in the first 2 days of the opening of the Kursk offensive, with the railing on the side of the bridge trailing off into the river below. And we were also able to see that as of this morning, 2 additional HIMARS impacts have been recorded on the bridge, most likely caused by some form of a GMLRS rocket that was fired by a HIMARS. Then, later on the day, this picture began to emerge, showing that several spans of the bridge had completely collapsed into the Sam River below, and it appears that the bridge and its access into the southern area and the Glishkovo district has been completely wiped out. Then, just about an hour later, we were able to get footage from the Ukrainian Air Force confirming that the airstrike had occurred and was a success. Here is the clip of the bridge actually being hit by the Ukrainian guided ordnance, which would then knock out the bridge and the access to the entirety of the Glishkovo district. I'm going to be muting that audio there for a second, but we can see the airstrike coming in right here, slamming into the bridge, and the strike was powerful enough that it actually disconnected some of the spans. You can actually see them hitting the water right there in the sim, and completely knocking out access to the Glishkovo district. The Glishkovo Bridge is by far the most important bridge that is in the Glishkovo district. There are actually 3, which we can count. There is one towards the area of Kerch. This one has absolutely no strategic value from what we understand, and so we're not including it in the analysis. However, there is another smaller bridge that does lead to an access towards Rlysk in the town of Zvno, which we can see right here. And this one is apparently still damaged, as Ukrainian artillery has been trying to knock this one out as well, but this one has not been completely destroyed yet. However, the actual bridge at Glishkovo has been completely destroyed as of right now. This is an incredibly important fact to talk about because the entire Glishkovo district is south of the Reka Sem, meaning that the entire river serves as a natural barrier in between it and the rest of the Kursk Oblast, which is controlled by the Russian Federation further up north and in the area of Rlysk. From what we understand, the Ukrainians now have complete access to this area, and the Russian forces, numbering about 700 men that are in the area in between Snigost and Tetkino and south of the Reka Sem, are completely surrounded at this point and really will have no way out. There is, however, one thing that the Russians have done that has been seen on satellite footage that happened about 2 days ago. They did set up a pontoon bridge further east on the river, and you can actually see it right there. It's very faint on the satellite image, but it is not that far away from the main Glishkovo bridge. Now again, I should bring y'all there on satellite and show y'all this. This is where, right here, where the crossing has been made. Of course, there aren't really any well-made roads, even dirt roads, through this area, meaning that Russian logistical movements, just moving the 700 guys out in their vehicles, may end up getting bogged down on the muddy-ish ground that surrounds the Reka Sem, meaning that this isn't really the most viable supply route, and this most likely only serves as a path of retreat, not a path of continued sustainment for logistics to be able to move over and keep the Russian garrison, the 700 men that are south of the Reka Sem, operational and fighting against the Ukrainians. So we are assuming that at this point, either the Russians are going to conduct a full retreat, or the pontoon bridge and the last remaining bridge over the river that's already damaged at this point down in the area of Zvno will most likely be knocked out as well, and the 700 Russians will be entirely trapped south of the river at this point. From what we largely know, they already are trapped south of the river because there isn't really an easy way to move an entire battalion of border guards and all of their equipment across a damaged bridge, which most likely will not be able to support the weight of their retreat, or the pontoon bridge, which doesn't really have any kind of a viable road system around it, and once again will not be able to support a large-scale rapid retreat back across the Sem. We also were able to get information and pictures of the other bridges in the area. One of these is the bridge all the way down that we said that is not strategically viable. That's this bridge, but the one that's of no is this one right here. This bridge is fairly small. From what we understand, it's a 2-lane bridge. The one at Glishkovo was 2-lane, but from what we understand, it had a larger weight restriction on it, meaning that larger vehicles could cross over. But this bridge is really the last one left. This one's also been damaged as well, according to information that we have from HIMARS strikes, but it takes second fiddle compared to the Glishkovo bridge because, once again, the amount of tonnage that could be moved across the Zvano bridge was far less than the amount of tonnage that could be moved over the Glishkovo bridge. After the Glishkovo bridge was declared destroyed by Ukrainian armed forces, we started to hear that the Ukrainians are beginning a rapid advance towards the area, already moving out from Snegost and into the area of Vishnevka at this very moment. The reports that we're getting are actually giving us an idea that the Ukrainians are going to be advancing so rapidly that there probably will not be a good amount of time for the Russians to even conduct a retreat across the Reka Sem. They're most likely going to get stuck on the southern end, especially if the bridge at Zvano ends up being destroyed. The only bridge that's usable at this moment near Glishkovo is the pontoon bridge. We put it down on the map right here with a little NATO marking sign for a bridge, but the reality is that it's actually just up here where my mouse cursor is on the map. But nevertheless, the Ukrainians are advancing very rapidly towards the area of Glishkovo. Just over the past few hours, they've advanced over about 2 kilometers, meaning that by the end of the day, the town of Glishkovo could be under fire directly from Ukrainian armed forces on the ground, and not only that, the pontoon bridge may be overrun, meaning that if the Russians are not retreating at this moment, which from what we understand, they are not, they will most likely be cut off from any path of retreat, and therefore 700 Russians will end up being forced to surrender later on in the battle to the Ukrainian armed forces because there's really no way for them to get out of this situation and to try and save themselves at this moment. This is one of the largest developments so far that we've seen in the Kursk offensive. Probably one of the biggest upsets for the Russian side, but one of the biggest victories for the Ukrainian side is that they were able to destroy that bridge before the Russians were able to cross it and retreat further north, allowing these forces to not fight another day and depriving the Russians of about another entire battalion of combat power in this area at the moment. Meanwhile, we also got a little bit more news that was fairly interesting out of the area of Kerch today, as we were able to hear that the city of Kerch apparently came under attack and had caught on fire from drone attacks. We don't know much detail about the fires that have been caused here. You can actually see the town sign of Kerch right there in this picture, once again confirming that these drone attacks and fires did occur in the city of Kerch. We don't have a lot of information about what this attack consisted of in terms of the number of drones, in terms of the Russian air involvement, anything like that. We haven't really been able to get much or any information on that, but once again, it does appear that Ukrainian drones did attack the city of Kerch and did end up causing some pretty significant damage from what we could tell. Meanwhile, the Russians are trying their hand at anti-ship warfare again, and not on any armed targets, but on unarmed civilian vessels, as we did see that a picture surfaced today of a cargo ship, a grain carrier, being hit near the city of Odessa. From what we understand, it was most likely hit by a Russian anti-ship missile, either air-launched or surface-launched, although the Russian surface fleet is not really in a condition to even get close enough to fire on these vessels, so we're considering that was an air-launched anti-ship missile, but it ended up hitting near to the engine bay of the ship, and from what we can understand, it is right outside of Odessa Harbor at this moment and still on fire. Of course, an incredibly unfortunate scenario, but still showing that the Russian Federation is trying any chance they can to inflict damage and suffering onto the Ukrainian civilian populace and the populace of civilians around the world and other countries wherever they can. Meanwhile, moving on all the way into Kursk, we did get confirmation today of the Tu22M3's crash and the subsequent wreckage that was caused. Apparently, not every crew member was able to eject out of this aircraft, and we now heard that a navigator actually went down in the aircraft and ended up impacting the ground with the plane. Of course, the navigator did not survive. That's the end of that clip, but still showing the damage that was caused at the Tu-22M3, and of course reminding us that the Russian military aviation, even at this point, is starting to be posed with a large amount of issues as the ailing fleet is not able to get the amount of replacement and repair parts that would be needed to be able to keep these planes flying. But still, nevertheless, that is all of the breaking news that we have today. I've got to thank all of y'all so much once again for watching. If y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. We love to see it when people do. And also support us on Patreon. The link is in the description below. I got to give a massive shout out to all of our folks who are currently on Patreon at the moment, supporting this channel and helping it to keep on running. Because if it was not for all of them, we would not be able to make video projects like these possible nearly every single day. And so, of course, big shout out to all of y'all once again. Huge thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.